Well, thank you for joining us tonight. This is just another one of our AI monthly workshops or webinars, and I am super excited that we have two amazing computer science teachers on this call. We have Emmanuel Schanzer, who is with Bootstrap, if any of you have heard anything about our Bootstrap partnership with math and science. And we also have one of our own Oklahoma teachers. We have Jimmy Hartford tonight. And the two of them are going to break down AI in a way that makes it seem very simplistic, and it's not magic. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and I hope you're as excited as I am.
All right. Jim, you want to start us off here?
Yeah, so I think the big question for a lot of you is why are we here? We hear a lot about AI. For some of you, it's really, really scary. And we just want to take a moment and, talk about why we might want to learn about AI and, why it's important to make sure our students are going to be literate. Um, do we think that being literate in AI is something that we should even bother with? Should we just like thumb our nose at it and say it's not for me and ignore it? Some of you might be in the opposite boat and think it's going to Terminator is going to come in and take over the world very, very soon, and we're really anxious and we're concerned about it. So just take a moment and if you want to talk about what are the things that you're feeling about AI and why you're here and what you want to maybe get from our talk today. And if you're shy, then I might voluntold somebody.
I think we should call on Rachel.
Hey, hey, Rachel, what brings you here today?
Sorry, I had to send the actual link to somebody that I had invited. I'm not sure if he's coming or not, but
Thank you.
yeah,
Trying to fix the link issue. Thank you, Rachel.
yeah. Uh, it's spring break. I was bored. And I never miss a chance to hang out with you guys. This is exactly who I expected to be here. So,
What are you thinking about AI? Are you worried about it? Are you excited about it? Do you know a lot
um,
about it and need to know more about it?
yeah, I taught some of the Bootstrap AI curriculum with one of my classes last semester. It went okay. Um, I've also, as the IT person for my district, I've also had to turn off a lot of AI tools. Um, so for students, not for staff, but
Why have you had to turn them off?
because they just put everything into AI and copy and paste and turn it in.
Okay. Do you guys have you had conversations as a school about why that's problematic or why that's okay or not okay?
Yeah, I mean, not in-depth conversations. I think um I think that's something that we'll talk about as we look to revise our standards and uh, tech stuff for next year. Um, but specifically, I had to turn off most recently the um, AI portion of Google, not Gemini, the part that where you like search on Google and there's an AI mode.
Yeah,
I had to
yeah.
turn that off because kids were just especially for the online courses. When they were doing the online courses, they just copy and paste the entire question in, and then, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you're in the weeds with it, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really frustrating because, we're seeing the same thing with adults also.
hmm
So, it's just a whole complete mindset change.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is.
So one of the problems we're having is with just trying to define what is AI. So, Google is a computer that's giving you answers. Why is that okay? And then, why is the AI part of it not okay? Where are we drawing these lines?
Yeah, I think it comes down to like where do you consider it to be your own writing and when do you not? Right? Like how much of it do you have to change to consider it your own? And then when you do, at least I found, because I started messing around with it a little bit, the AI detection software. If I put something that I wrote completely myself, most of the time it still shows between 10 and 20% AI.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
What do you think that means, if anything?
I'm a great writer. No, I don't know. And since I apply for a lot of grants, I've noticed on most of them they have a checkbox that makes you certify that AI didn't write this.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and
So,
you look surprised by that. One of them was actually the presidential award. I had to certify that AI didn't write anything.
okay. So kind of this is the different reasons we're here today, and we're going to try and answer some of those questions on what is it actually doing, how is it that Rachel, a living breathing human, actually is getting 20% AI responses, and maybe kind of get into the heart of what it's doing and how we're getting those actual answers. And before we kind of get too deep into it, we maybe want to define what is AI and what are these algorithms actually doing?
Yeah. So, I think it's really interesting. People have no problem pointing to a flow chart or something, right? Like some sort of like list of rules and saying, well, let's just follow the rules. That's not AI. That's just like kind of like a dumb machine. And so, before, as Jimmy's saying, before we talk about what is AI, we should probably get a sense for what isn't AI. And so we've heard a lot of talk in Oklahoma about computational thinking. It's a concept that's been on the national stage. And one of the big words for computational thinking is algorithm. So how would we define algorithm? Like what is an algorithm to you, Karen, or to you, Rachel?
I had to admit for the longest time that wasn't a word that was part of my vocabulary. But, when you really examine it, it's something that's just that step-by-step process. And I think when we break down that word, it makes it so much easier to understand.
How about you, Rachel? How would you describe an algorithm to a student?
Yeah, mine was along the same lines of Karen, a process that you can use over and over to do the same thing multiple times.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty darn good, those are great definitions. Yeah, an algorithm is a rote series of steps, and you just carry them out. There's no thinking, there's no intelligence. You're just following one thing after another. So that being said, and anyone who wants to teach AI literacy, AI at all, should make sure they can explain what an algorithm is. Because now I'm going to present a question. And this is actually a question we ask our students in some of our AI classes, which is, well, here are some examples of things. Which, which ones are AI? And which ones are just a rote, sort of dumb algorithm? So the computer finds that you misspelled a word and it suggests other words that maybe you are the word you actually meant, right? Or it fixes your grammar. Is that just a dumb algorithm or is that artificial intelligence? Plagiarism detection or recommending a song or video you like. We have programs that can now play chess and actually be really good at chess. Is that just a dumb algorithm or is that a? So I'll put this out to the group, which is of course Rachel and Karen, and also we've got a new visitor who's just joined us. Welcome. We've got a list of technologies on the screen here, and we just talked about what an algorithm is. And so the question for you all is, of these items on the list, which ones are AI and which ones are just sort of a dumb algorithm that's just repeating itself? What would you all think?
I think we have used tools such as spelling and grammar checking, and looking back upon reflection, yes, that's an AI component because it's looking for those patterns. And to me, I see what's missing and what's not. And I just think that there are so many, chess playing. It's that algorithmic pattern. If you do this, then you're going to do that. And I don't think it gets really kind of confusing. Is it AI when it's just a tool doing it for us? Or does our brain think like an AI tool? Maybe I'm not being clear, but
Well, Karen, it sounds like you're saying all of these count as AI. And at least some of them are also kind of just plain dumb algorithms. Do I have that right? Okay. Lois, welcome. I hope you don't mind me calling you out. I'm just curious, as you're looking at this list, the items on this list that you would say, Emmanuel, that is definitely AI, or that is definitely not AI.
I would say song and video are probably not AI because well, I don't know. I'll have to think about that because that could be based on what you have played. And so AI would record that and come up with an algorithm. Um, wow, maybe all of them are AI.
Okay, could be, right? I think that this is an important place to start if you want to talk about AI literacy, because here's a really simple algorithm, right? Add all the numbers from 0 to 100, right? So you just keep checking what number you're at, and if you're not at 100 yet, you keep adding. I think nobody would call that AI. Like that's just an algorithm. That's a for loop. Um, but it's important to pose this question to your kids because is AI actually different? Just a dumb algorithm? Maybe AI is just things that people didn't know computers can do yet. And whenever it feels new, they go, oh, that's AI. And then a couple years later, when they realize like everyone's doing it, they're like, that's not AI. It's just an algorithm. So we're going to explore this in tonight's talk because this question has a lot to do with AI literacy. So AI, fundamentally, one of the biggest concepts in artificial intelligence is actually about measuring the similarity of lots of different things. So for example, your spell checker and grammar checker, what they're saying is, I see this word. I don't know what it is in the dictionary. Here are 3 words that I can recommend that are similar to that spelling. And anyone who's ever used predictive text on your cell phone, right, where you're typing it in and it's suggesting the next word, it's essentially saying, I think that what I've seen so far is close to this other sentence. So it's measuring the similarity of spellings or similarity of grammars. Plagiarism detection is the same thing. This essay is suspiciously close to that essay. When YouTube recommends a new video, it's saying that based on the videos that you have watched and liked, just like Lois is saying, I think here's a similar video that you will like. When a computer is playing chess against you, it's saying, well, I'm looking at the chessboard, and this is pretty similar to other boards that I was trained on, so I think I know what to do. Self-driving cars, right? When you get in your Tesla and it does, I don't know, I've actually never been in a Tesla, but when you get in a Tesla, I happen to know some of how it works. And what it's doing is it's comparing all of the sensor data and saying, I think I've seen data similar to this before. And ChatGPT, we'll get to that later. Just pointing out every example that we've listed here is actually about being able to compare 2 different things and say, are they very similar? Not so similar. And tonight, you're going to learn the actual algorithm that underlies a lot of this. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Okay, so in each of those examples that Emmanuel was just talking about, you can think of them as kind of some language that that kind of encapsulates that world, like ChatGPT. The world that it has is the text on the internet. So to start off, let's think of our language, our universe as just music, and we're gonna make up some songs because you guys look like probably the most creative people I've ever met. Um, we're going to keep things really simple. Our songs are going to have 2 words, a snap and a clap. Okay. And we're going to make words with just, or songs with just 8 words. So an example would be snap, 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 clap, 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 clap. And I can tell you guys are riveted by my amazing song that I've just written, just off the top of my head. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. And in the chat, I want you to compose your own songs of these amazing words, snap and clap. And then I also want to make sure you give me the name of your composition. Okay. So I don't know, about 30 seconds, get into the chat and give me some songs. Emmanuel's already got his song. He didn't name it, which is infinitely disappointing, but he got a song. So can everybody else give me a song?
And feel free to copy and paste those emoji in the chat, right? You don't have to go hunting through your emoji picker. You can just use what we've got.
Yes, thank you, Emmanuel. I am an emoji deficient person. I cannot do those at all. I always have to hunt for them.
I didn't
Oh,
look for emojis. I just used the words.
Karen's Tuesday night mood. Snap, snap, clap, snap, snap, clap, clap, clap.
And I could see Lois's as she was doing it.
And then I see Rachel's snap, snap, clap, clap, snap, clap, snap, clap. I don't see Lois's though. Oh, she was doing it physically. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, she's doing, see, she's an advanced user of the emojis. I can't actually do that.
No, I'm not. I'm just struggling with this right now.
Okay.
Trying to get it over there.
Well, you're still doing better than me. I would take like 30 minutes to try and figure out where those emojis are on Zoom.
And while I was doing that, I can say this is an activity you can do with your students that does not require even a computer in the room to do.
Yeah.
Rachel, I need the name for your song. And Emmanuel, did you put a name in there?
I will. Let's see.
I love Tuesdays nights. Mood, Rhapsody, and emoji. Yes,
All right, we got Lois's too.
we do. Snap, snap, snaps, clap, snap, clap, clap, clap. Crazy notes is
Love it.
hers. Okay. So how are we going to, like, these are all completely different different compositions, and they're amazing compositions. But how are they different? Any ideas of how we might compare these two? Well, all of these songs. We got 4 of them here.
Could we turn them into ones and twos and see how they line up?
Okay. Say more about that, Karen. What do
So
you mean
maybe
by
a clap
lining
is
up?
a 1 and a snap is a 2, and it might be, we could try and see what patterns we can find there.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Well, they're very similar because you only have the snaps and the claps. You don't have a lot of variety.
Yeah.
They're all the same. They all have 4 snaps and 4 claps.
Rachel says they're all the same.
Do they all have 4 snaps and 4 claps?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, they do. All right, I gotta mix it up then.
So that's definitely a pattern. So Lois, you said they're all the same. Are they literally the same song?
Well, no, but
Ooh.
you're using the same notes, if you were assigning a note to each one. They could be a different rhythm, but it would be the same 2 notes, particularly with if you have one, if the snap is 1 note and a clap is a different note.
People have sued for using the same chord progression
Okay.
and lost,
That's
but
true.
Well, are they really all the same? Like if I have a song, like let's say I have two songs. One is all snaps, the other is all claps. Those songs just as different as the songs we came up with in the chat, or are they somehow more different or less different?
That's a good question because I could almost see them being the same because they're
Mhm.
constant.
Does that mean that every song on YouTube that's the same length is the same song?
Length is different than note.
If it has the same rhythm, is it the same song?
And you don't know what's assigned to each snap or each clap, or if they're
You said they all have the same amount of time.
Yeah, it's the same rhythm.
okay.
The only difference
But
is the sounds.
so they could be different notes or different percussion sounds or different trumpet or
Yeah.
or even a vocal in there.
And how do you measure that? So for now, we're in a simple world where we only have snaps and claps. How do you measure whether two songs are really different or only a little bit different? Or are we just going to say they're all equally different from each other?
Looking at
Well,
Rachel's, oh, go ahead, Lois.
it just seems like, we have composers that have continued to compose songs that sound different in a lot of ways, but they're similar in a lot of ways. And they all use the same number of notes because we're limited to the same number of notes. The rhythm can change, the instruments can change, but you only have, well, on a keyboard, there's so many keys. So you're limited to the number of sounds on the particular instruments you're using. If it's vocal, you're not as limited because you can have some basses that go extremely low and some sopranos that go extremely high. It depends on the instrument you're using, I guess.
Let's compare two specific songs. Let's look at Emmanuel's first song and Rachel's song. And then let's compare Emmanuel's first song to his second song. Is either of those pairs closer or further apart, do you think? And then why?
The second one, they're all the same, so it doesn't sound like a rhapsody to me. If that's the title he's giving it.
Yeah, but
So
the question is, which pair is more different? My first song and my second song, or my first song and Rachel's song? Which ones are more
Oh,
different?
to Rachel's.
No,
Rachel's.
which ones are,
his two are more different.
Right.
and then Rachel and Emmanuel's first song, are they closer together?
Yeah.
Okay. And how could we, like, what makes you think that, Rachel?
I only made one change. I only swapped two of the emojis.
Okay.
Otherwise, they're the same.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about let's go with Lois's song compared to uh same thing. Emmanuel's first one and then Emmanuel and then Rachel and or excuse me, I'm confusing myself. Let's do Lois and Emmanuel's first one and Lois and Emmanuel's second one. Which pair are closer?
I would say the first one's
The
closer
first one.
because,
Yeah.
yeah.
Second
And
one's
then,
all the same.
The first one's closer.
okay. So what makes Emmanuel's feeling snappy so different than the others?
There was no change.
There's
What do
two
you
there's
mean?
two differences.
What do you mean by two differences?
So if you compare them, like The first thing in both of them is a snap, so that's not a difference. So out of all 8 of those, there's only 2 that are different.
Any other thoughts on that? So we've had some interesting conversations, but let's break it down to these two songs. I've got Snappity, Snap Snap, and Rhapsody and Clap. And then I have Snap Snap Snap, Clap Clap Clap, and then Clap Clap Clap, Snap Snap Snap. Which two do you think are closer together?
Are we doing left and right, or are we doing top line and bottom line?
Each line, compare
Left and right.
the first two and then the second two.
Well, the second one is a mirror of, the
Okay.
second line is a mirror of each other. So those are, I don't know which one would be more different. They both have qualities that make them different and similar.
Okay.
Maybe let me make this easier. There's no wrong answer, but you do have to give an answer. So you're not allowed to say, gee, they all are kind of different. Nope. Nope. You got to pick a way to measure difference. And there's no wrong answer. Pick any way you want, but it has to be a way. So I'll propose one. We could count the longest stretch of repeated sounds. So I'm going to say that on that top line, I see 8 versus 8. And on the bottom line, I see 4 versus 4. That's one way to do it. What's another way?
On the bottom line, they're reversed as far as the 4 and 4.
Mm-hmm. So you're counting the number of snaps, 4 and 4, the number of claps.
Yeah, yes, they're just in reverse order.
Yeah.
They both start with different actions.
So looking at the starting sound.
If you compare directly, like slot 1, are those the same? Slot 2, are those the same? You have 0 to 0.
Yeah, so you could compare samenesses, count for note by note, which ones are the same, right? We get a score somehow. So the higher the score, the more same they are. Well, I think Lois is really onto something about like noticing like the number of snaps and the number of claps, right? And noticing that they were sort of mirrored in that second one.
Do you agree with that, Lois?
Which
Yeah.
one?
So you notice that in the second two, there's 4 claps and 4 snaps, and then
Yes.
there's 4 snaps and 4 claps.
Right, so they're just reverse, what I
Yeah.
said. a minute ago.
So
Yeah.
there's some similarity there that the first line
Yes.
doesn't have.
Oh,
And
exactly.
a point that Emmanuel said, that there is no wrong answer, but we have to make a choice. So there is more than one way. And one of the typical ways that we measure is what's called a bag in the box, where we just count the number of words and we just see how many there are. So looking at the first song, all claps, how many claps does it have?
8.
8.
Okay. And how many claps does it have?
You mean snaps?
Snaps,
Well,
no snaps.
it has 0 snaps, and how many claps does it have?
8.
Okay, and then the second one on that first row, how many claps does it have?
0.
And then how many claps does it have?
Snaps, it has 8 snaps and 0 claps.
Okay, and then on the third one, first one on the second row, how many snaps are there?
4.
And then for the claps?
4.
And then on the last one, how many claps?
4.
And how many claps or snaps?
4.
Four. So based on that, there seems to be a different level of similarity.
Yeah, so by counting claps and snaps, every song turns into two numbers, right? Number of claps, number of snaps. And anytime we have two numbers, we can graph them on a coordinate plane, right? So instead of an XY axis, I'm going to have a snap clap axis. And can you guys see my mouse as I'm moving my mouse pointer around? Okay.
Yes.
So Aaron, this song represented here by this dot, how many claps and how many snaps does it have?
8 claps and 0 snaps.
Great. And Rachel, how about this song?
4 and 4.
Okay. And Lois, how about this song down at the bottom?
8.
8 what?
It's 8 snaps.
And how many claps?
None down there.
That's right. Yeah. So the 2 points that are the farthest apart, right, are this one up here, all claps, and this one down here, snaps. Those are the most different. And you can sort of see they're also the dots that are the farthest apart from each other on the axis. And the closer the points are together, the more similar the snap. So right here in the middle, this is 4 and 4. Now there are a lot of different songs that could be 4 and 4. You could have 4 claps followed by 4 snaps. You could have the reverse. You could alternate clap, snap, clap, snap, clap, snap, clap, snap. But in this model, they'll all graph to the same point. Now, them are in a straight line in this graph because we added a rule. We said you're only allowed to have 8 words in your song, right? 8 snaps or 8 claps. So they're all going to come up. But, you know, what if we have different length songs? What if we want some songs to be really long and some songs to be really short? Well, back over here, we were sort of saying that like you could measure the distance between the points to measure how similar they are. And Lois, I don't suppose you happen to be a math teacher in your secret life, are you?
No.
Well, that's okay. Have you ever heard of the Pythagorean theorem?
Oh, years ago, I'm sure.
Well, guess what? If we want to measure which dots are closest together, right? If we want to say, well, you know, gee, what dots are closer to what? Well, this dot and this dot, this one was a right triangle. I could use the Pythagorean theorem to say how close any 2 songs are. And that works pretty darn well as long as our songs are the same length. But if I want to have different length songs, well, I can't use the Pythagorean theorem. I need something different. So now I have dots that are not all 8 words long. So these are all different songs. Instead of measuring the hypotenuse, what I can do is for any 2 songs, I can drop a line down to the origin and just measure the angle. So all of the songs that are like up here, Rachel, what can we say about all the songs that are here where I'm circling? What do they all have in common?
They all have at least 5 claps.
They all have at least 5 claps. I can go even further. They have more claps than they have snaps,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the midline, let's see if I can use a different color. This midline, I'll draw it in pink. This midline is all the songs that have exactly the same number of snaps and claps. So anything above the line is clap heavy. Anything below the line is snap heavy. So all the songs that are up there on the top left are clap heavy songs. And by measuring the angle, you can always tell what songs are generally pretty clap heavy, even if one song is really long and the other song is really short. So now suppose I like the songs that I marked in red. So I liked these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 songs. And Lois, I need you to recommend a song that I might like. So if the red dots are all songs I like, what would you say would be another song? Can you recommend a song for me that I might like?
You said you liked all the red ones.
So which song here is a song that's similar to those?
So you'd have to have another song that has a more of the red, that has more claps.
That has more claps. So which I've got a couple of green notes here. I've got some down here.
So is each one a different song? Is
Yes,
that what you're saying?
every song is a dot because every song has a number of claps and a number of snaps.
Okay, so you're going to match the ones at the top in the red
Yeah.
because that's the ones you like.
So if I like these red ones, would you recommend this song down here?
Probably not.
Okay. Would you recommend this song here?
Yeah, because it's closer. It's close to what you like.
That's exactly right. So by using angle measures, right, we're saying, well, these are all kind of close together, right? If I measure, so here's a line to a song I like, and here's a line to a song I don't know. The angle between these lines is pretty small. And I know Zoom is only letting me do a very narrow line, so I hope you guys are able to see those. But so that's the idea, that just by measuring angles, we can get a good recommendation in this very primitive song world. But maybe it doesn't need to stay so primitive. Jimmy, passing it back to you.
So, Lois wasn't overly impressed with just having snaps and claps. Let's add a third song or a third word, stomps. I'm a percussionist. I love stomping around. So then we have three songs or three words for each song. How are we going to represent that? So, Emmanuel, if you go back one slide really quickly. So, two words, two dimensions. What's it going to look like if we have, and you can go forward now. What's it going to look like if we have three words? How many dimensions is that going to be?
It's 3 dimensions, but I don't know exactly where they're going to go on your chart.
Exactly right, Lewis. There's your three dimensions. So we're going to have a clap dimension, we're going to have a snap dimension, and then we're going to have a stomp dimension. So now we're talking about three dimensions. Okay. And then if we had four songs, how many dimensions would that be? It'd be four dimensions.
Karen and you'll need to get their 3D glasses. They're the only ones that don't have their glasses today.
There we go. And Emmanuel's drawing in some three-dimensional lines segments for us. So one of the things that people talk about in like the math world, which I come from, is, oh, geometry is this thing that was 2,000 years old. We don't really need to teach it anymore. We need to do something that's 21st century. And this is just geometry. The geometry that you learned in 2 dimensions in high school still applies when you go into 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions or however many dimensions you want. Yeah, if we want to add tempo, if we want to add drums, guitar, we talked about different rhythms. Each of those things is going to be a different dimension. And sometimes we get lost in this and like, oh, mathematicians, we want to do the physics because there's like 11-dimensional physics and all things are weird. And mathematicians don't care about any of that. If you have something that's a question in 4 dimensions, that's 4-dimensional geometry. And we're using that in the 21st century in just this AI stuff. So we don't even have to get into physics to keep this relevant for our students in their high school geometry classes. All right, let's go to the next slide.
Well, I just want you to notice that even though now we're in 3 dimensions, we can still, all the same rules still work. If I like these red dots and I want to recommend a new song, well, I'll draw a line to any 2 songs. And as soon as I have those 2 lines, I can measure the angle between them. So the math still works. We're always just measuring angles, whether it's in 2, 3, or a million dimensions.
Yeah. And we already spent a lot of time talking about this, so I don't want to go too deep into it. But like there's more than one way we can measure this, how we're going to graph our points and then how we measure the similarity. And we came up with just how many snaps there are, how many claps are. That was the bag in the box. But we could also talk about how many different um, like a sequence of claps and a sequence of snaps. And there's different ways to do that and plot those points on the graph. And if we did that, what is that going to do to our graph? Is that going to give us like the same give us the same results, or is that going to give us like different results that might give us different similarities?
What's your question?
Um,
Let me rephrase. So we said a couple slides ago that there were lots of different ways to measure similarity, right? One way is counting slaps, counting snaps, counting claps and snaps. Another way might be, like Rachel said, count all the number of notes that are the same. There's tons of ways to count similarity. And whichever way you pick, the dots are going to move around on the graph in some way. There'll still be a graph, there'll still be dots, but they'll be in different places. And so it matters which kind of measure you use, because this algorithm might give us really good song recommendations where you're like, wow, how did Spotify know? I can't believe it was such a good recommendation. Or you're like, oh my God, Spotify really screwed up. Depending on which way you make your graph. And by the way, for folks watching at home, this algorithm we've described, this isn't kiddie stuff. This is how Spotify recommends songs, honest to God. It's in about 120,000 dimensions, but that's what it's doing. We didn't just tell you kind of how it works. This is literally how it works. And so it really matters who gets to choose the way we're measuring similarity of songs. So let's see if we can talk about how we measure similarity besides something else, not just songs, but essays, right? We've all heard of plagiarism detectors. So how is this going to work? Jimmy, do you want to walk through the slide, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I can jump in.
Yeah.
So we're switching from the language of music back to the language of to essays. So we see my wonderful essay, see spot run. I got another one, run spot run, run spots. We can do the exact same thing we're doing with music, but with essays. Now the words are really words. So we can look at how that's going to graph. And we can do it in 3 dimensions. We can add the word see, spot, and run, and we can plot all of those essays. And we can do the exact same measure that we measuring angles that we did with the music. And now, which of these essays are going to be the same or similar, should I say? Is it going to be the ones that are in red, or is it going to be the ones in the green? And Rachel mentioned at the top that she every time she gets a plagiarism tester, they say it's 20% AI. Why might that be? Because all it's doing is taking all the words that she used and is comparing her bag of words to a different bag of words and seeing how.
So instead of counting unique notes, we're counting unique words. So instead of counting snaps, counting claps, now we're counting the word see, the word spot, and the word run. You might have essays from all over the school, and together maybe like your class uses like 1,000 different words across all the essays. Well, you'll have 1,000 dimensions, and every single essay is a point in those dimensions. But the angle measure works here too. We can still draw the lines, we can still measure the angle, and we can still measure the similarity between them. Now, here's why this is really important. We talk about ethics, right? Everyone likes to say, we talk about ethics in our AI literacy class. I would argue that it is very difficult to talk about the ethics of something if you don't understand anything about how it works. Right? There are people that think cell phones are rewriting our DNA. Now, it's because they don't understand how cell phones work. And that's fine. I have no problem with them not understanding that, but I do not want them to have discussions of ethics of cell phones if they think that cell phones are rotting our brains. So let's talk, we're using what we just learned. If a plagiarism detector is measuring the distances between points in space, using what you just learned, I'm going to give you two examples. We've got preschoolers, very narrow vocabulary, right? They're just preschoolers. And the teacher says, write 2 sentences about zebras. Scenario 2, high school seniors, much bigger vocabularies, are reading entire book reports about whatever novel they each like best. So different novels, lots of book reports, lots of vocabulary words. In which of these 2 situations do you think a plagiarism detector is going to come up with a lot of false positives? Like you wouldn't trust it. You shouldn't trust the plagiarism detector. What do you think?
I guess I would say the preschooler because there's not that many to choose from
Yeah.
to look at the variety.
Yeah, they're only writing 2 sentences each, and they're forced to write about zebras. So they're all going to have the word zebra a lot. And they're preschoolers, huh? Do they even know? So now that you understand how plagiarism detector works by plotting these things in space, you're like, wait a second, the space is really freaking small with these little kids. So it's probably going to say they're all plagiarizing, right? English as second language or English language learners who have to write 1 paragraph about the First Amendment. Is it ethical to use a plagiarism detector there or not? Now, I'm not expecting you to answer that right now, but my point is this. We are able to have a much richer conversation about the ethics of AI if we understand a little bit about how it works. Do we have to be professional AI engineers? No. But not knowing anything, just saying, I don't know, it's a magic box, makes it really hard to have a meaningful discussion. We can also measure the similarity between pictures. And we're not going to go into depth here, but I'm just going to ask, here are 9 pictures of mountains. Rachel, which 2 pictures do you think are the most similar and why?
As an aside, I actually did this activity with my kids last semester, and this was one of their favorite ones. So now let me answer your question.
Yeah, which 2 are the most similar and why?
Um, 3 and 5.
3 and 5, okay.
Yep.
Okay, and why are they the most similar?
I think they have the most color similarities.
Okay, so maybe in this case, instead of our words being snaps and claps or words in an essay, maybe our words are colors. And we're just comparing every little pixel of the image, right? Imagine that this image is on a sheet of graph paper and every square is 1 color. So we can just measure how blue an image is, and that'll give us a number for every picture on here. Some pictures are going to be a lot of blue, some pictures will be not very blue. And there's so many, maybe we're going to do every color, or just the primary colors, right? That'll give us a 3-dimensional axis, and each image is a point in space. So this idea of really simple geometry, like middle school geometry, plotting points, measuring angles, turns out that allows us to do everything from song recommendation to plagiarism detection to image similarity. When you go to Google Images, have you ever tried this? You can upload an image and it will find you other images that are close to it. Guess what? This is how it works. And if you're wondering, well, how is it that when I type in, a dog carrying a raven into Google Images, how does it know to find images like that? Well, it's because human beings had several million images in its database. So a human went in there and said, this is a mountain. This is a sunrise with water and a mountain. This is clouds and grass. And Google Images, so it has like a million images that it knows about because humans have tagged it, and then billions more that it doesn't know about. But it can use the angle measure to say, well, this image is really close to this other image that a person told me has a dog in it. So I think it must be a dog. Again, measuring similarity. So, as we mentioned, depending on what measure you use, counting snaps, counting claps, counting colors, counting words, you can plot stuff on a scatter plot. Now that you've got it on a scatter plot, remember we promised we'd get to ChatGPT. Now that we've got things on a scatter plot, well, yeah, we can look for similarity between existing songs or essays or images, but we can do more than measure similarity. We can look for patterns. So, do you all see this orange line in our scatter plot? Anybody, what's that line called? I know not all of us are math teachers, but anybody remember what that line is called?
Linear regression.
That's one word for it. It's a fancy word. It's the regression line.
Line of best fit.
Line of best fit, 8th grade standard, right? It's the line that goes through the dots, right? That has the smallest number of distance from the dots. Well, now that we have that line of best fit, and in fact, there you go, Rachel, I added a regression function for you. Now we can do something very interesting. Line of best fit is where you get generative AI. In other words, it's not just telling us which song is like some other song. It can make whole new songs for us. So on this line, I have 2 purple stars representing a point on the line that wasn't in our original data set. What do you call these points that are on the line, but weren't one of the songs we started with? Well, this one out here, you might say that's a hallucination, right? That's a point that is so far away from the other dots that it's just nonsense. I don't know what song that is, but it's a bunch of, it stinks. But once the dot is close to other, what if the star is close to other dots? Oh, well, now it's a new hit song. And here's the important thing. Whenever someone tells you, be careful with AI, it'll hallucinate sometimes. That statement suggests that they don't understand enough about how AI works. All of it is a hallucination. The whole damn thing is a hallucination machine. But some hallucinations are more sensible than others. This one that's close to my other songs, it's a pretty good hallucination. It almost sounds realistic. And so it's a new hit song, or a new essay about Moby Dick, or a new image of mountains. This hallucination is for me, so it seems crazy. But don't let anybody tell you that someday soon they'll fix the hallucination problem. They won't. Generative AI, the way it works is by drawing a line of best fit and just picking points that seem like they're part of the twin. It's all hallucinations. So, looking back on what we've covered, I think since there's a small group of us here, we don't need to type them in. I'm just curious, what's the biggest takeaway that you've gotten from what you've seen thus far? So I'm just going to pick on Caroline to start. What's a takeaway that you're getting out of what you've seen thus far?
We use it all the time, but I don't think we think about how it actually works. And, adding the math element and seeing it in the graphs, it makes me understand a lot, especially like the plagiarism detectors, how that works and how it can be unfair.
Yeah. How about for you, Rachel?
I don't have my thought fully formed yet.
We can come back. Lois, how about for you? What's something you're taking away from what you've seen so far?
Well, years ago, I taught basic computer programming, which was, of course, all numbers. And so it obviously makes sense that something that a computer is figuring out has got to be based on math. I just never thought about geometry or the graphs. I knew it had to have a math base, but I didn't think about it in the way that you've shown it to us.
Yeah. It's all just numbers all the way down.
It is.
But it takes humans to choose what numbers that matter.
For now, until it takes over.
So just to summarize here, right? One of the things we've talked about is that anything can be a language with words. Music is a language if your words are sounds. We started with snaps, claps, and stomps, but you can imagine guitar, vocals, you name it, right? English is a language. So if you're writing essays, that counts too. But so are images if the words are colors. So when you hear the term large language model, that's what they're talking about. Second big takeaway, any artifact you want in any language, you can graph them, which lets you measure similarity. And that's what forms the basis of recommendations, plagiarism detection, self-driving cars, and more. Big idea number 3 is that once you graph, you can find patterns. And that's where you get generative AI, or as I wish it was called, hallucinatory AI. And here's the thing. We gotta stop telling kids that AI is a magic box. It is not magic. It's just math. It's just a dumb machine learning algorithm. Just like we talked about in that first slide. It's an algorithm. There is nothing interesting about it. And I would say this, in fact, AI isn't remotely smart. It's just big, really big. Like so big that they have to actually boil a lake when they train a model, right? That's how much heat it generates. You may have seen it. Our electric bills are going up nationwide because data centers need all this electricity. All of modern AI is just middle school freaking geometry, plotting points, graphing lines, measuring angles, and finding line of best fit. But it's in hundreds of billions of dimensions. And instead of being trained on just a couple of essays, they're being trained on the collected written corpus of human words. It's not big. I'm sorry, it's not smart. It's just big. Big to a degree you cannot imagine. So where do we think this content fits? Right? So in one sense, this is a call for AI literacy classes to go a little farther than they might be going right now. Not every AI literacy class is teaching kids how the machine works. Learning to drive a car is good. That is a good thing. But that doesn't mean that you know how to change your tire. And I would say that like AI literacy needs to be a little bit more about how the machine works than just how to use it. And so, especially if we're thinking we got to teach this stuff because kids need jobs, we're worried about our national security, right? Politicians like to talk about staying competitive with China. Well, guess what? If you want to stay competitive with China, simply teaching kids how to use a tool is good, but won't get you there. We got to give them at least a sense for how it works. Now, I've actually had the opportunity to talk to some AI curriculum providers. And what they will often say is it's hard to get into this because kids don't have the math. But what math did we just use? We used coordinates, angles, and line of best fit. That's middle school stuff. That's stuff that's already in the standards. So it could certainly fit in an AI literacy class, but it could also fit in a middle school math class. As a middle school math teacher, look, you don't have to go deep into the AI side. You can just say, here is a real application of this math. Math teachers are saying all the time, I have to teach angles, I have to teach coordinates, I have to teach fractions, but kids just raise their hand and go, who cares? When will I use it? Machine learning, AI, that's when you'll use it. So instead of treating these as two separate problems that can never be solved, they can solve each other. AI literacy requires basic math, and basic math could really benefit from some AI application. And I'm not going to get into this because we've only got a minute left, but I'll just say, not for nothing, but high school math, you can easily adapt this for high school math. We dealt with angles going from 0 to 90 degrees. If that bothers you, if you're a computer person and you'd rather think between 0 and 1, take the cosine. Cosine is a way of squeezing angles into a nice, neat little number between 0 and 1. And in machine learning, there is a big thing literally called cosine similarity. High school trick. And you may have heard of deep neural networks. Guess what? These are just nonlinear functions. So anyone who teaches algebra 2, you have an engaging application for this stuff in modern machine learning. So we are at 8 o'clock Central Time. So we're going to leave it with this. If you have questions, Jimmy and I are here to hang out. If you like what you saw and you're thinking, gee, I wonder if there's like lesson plans and activities and slides and handouts and worksheets and all kinds of stuff for this activity and many more like it, here's a link to some free stuff. And if this short little info session that wasn't terribly interactive was whetting your appetite and you're like, gee, I would actually like to spend a day or two digging into this and learning more, contact Jimmy and I, and of course, Karen as well. And you know what? Rachel, if you want to throw your name in the chat, I know that you're an expert on this stuff too. We'd be happy to talk to you about bringing rigorous AI literacy material to existing AI classes if you have them, or existing math classes if you don't, in a way that teaches kids how the machine really works, that it is not magic, and gives them an engaging application of the math they already have to know. So we'll leave it there. Any questions?
You know, my mind is just jumbled at this point, again, because you're thinking of all these aspects that we don't normally think of when we use this. And I love the way to make coursework applicable to help students understand this. And as always, I find, Emmanuel, your trainings, and Jimmy, I have to give you credit because I see how much you have grown. You are a wonderful presenter, and I just want to thank both of you for taking the time tonight to share this. And I know that Emmanuel's got some great opportunities for educators that are interested in learning more. So I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. And is there any other questions?
I'll just say I taught part of the AI curriculum with my forensic science course this year because really the measuring similarity is a lot of forensic science, the fingerprints, the shoe prints, all of that. And so that was really a good way to start the year before we really got into comparisons.
That's cool. I would never have thought about that. That's awesome.
Later.
Very cool.